Did Detective Thorpe ever tell you, besides his file, did he tell you that he went out and looked at and saw or tried to see the video from the 10th day of January 2015, approximately 8 o'clock p.m. from the McDonald's?
Yeah, here's that.
I covered this with Detective Thorpe, and I'm impeaching him.
Overruled.
And in your review of Mr. Zachary records, did you see any incoming or outgoing calls between Mr. Zachary and Mr. McMullen?
No, I don't see any.
And lastly, for that same time period, did you see any activity, whether it be incoming or outgoing calls, between Mr. Zachary and Mr. Treadwell?
No, I don't see any.
And when you're reviewing Mr. Zachary's records, which are contained in State's Exhibit 517Y, is that correct? Is that correct?
Okay, I ain't even cursing in here.
The records contained for Mr. Zachary, do you recall those being 517Y?
I don't know the exhibit number for the records.
Okay. I don't have further questions pending redirect.
Selfie pics. Oh my gosh.
Anybody have questions for this witness right now that are going to last less than like an hour?
Less than an hour?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
Okay. Come on.
Max said, I got some.
If I'm not done an hour, start throwing things in.
Okay.
Can
Is that
we
just
do that
the
even
court
if
or
it is less than an
anybody
hour?
in the courtroom?
Doug is always going at Max, man. He said, can we throw things at him even if it's less than an hour?
Mr. Sprinkle, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. And of course, we know each other. You know who I represent, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to start out by talking to you about the jail calls and specifically my client, Shannon Stillwell's jail calls.
Okay.
I believe you testified that you downloaded, you estimated, I believe, 700?
So,
Yeah.
yes, the batch that I downloaded from 2015, maybe the calls descended into 2016 as well. I don't remember. I think it was around 700 audio files. So that would represent 700 calls. It's not 700 exactly, but that's what I remember.
I understand. And you, do you have a ballpark of how many you reviewed?
I didn't review all of them.
Okay.
And a matter of fact, I probably reviewed like maybe 50 to 75.
Okay. And regardless of how many you personally reviewed, when you downloaded them, they are saved onto your computer, your hard drive.
All of them are saved, yes.
Okay, and they would have been passed on to the prosecution team in this case, so they could review all of them, correct?
That's correct.
All right, cool. All right, I just want to, your job actually with the DA's office right now is you do prelims. You cover prelims for cases, correct? Amongst other things.
That's correct.
All right. And I just want to unpack a little bit about what you said about preliminary hearings, is when I say prelims, preliminary hearings. You said typically a lead detective testifies.
That's right.
Okay, and you said hearsay is allowed, meaning the lead detective is allowed to testify about what other people said.
That's correct.
Okay. And you are aware that jail call that was played that was tough to hear, a little bit low, that was from November 19th, 2015. 2015, correct?
That's right.
All right. And November 19, 2015 is the day that Shannon Stillwell had his prelim, correct?
That's what I recall, yes.
Okay. And that's why you had interest in that call.
That's right.
All right. And that call was made later in the day after Mr. Stillwell would have returned back to the jail from his preliminary hearing.
That's right.
All right. In Mr. Stillwell's preliminary hearing specifically, I know you said lead detectives generally are the only ones that testified. Detective Thorpe testified in that preliminary hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Thorpe.
Kenneth Copeland did not testify.
No.
Demekion Garlington did not testify.
No.
Quindarius Zachary did not testify.
No.
Okay. And I know it's hard to hear, but we're going to bring some volume to it, okay? Mr. Stillwell on that call said, I just went to court and they let everything out.
That sounds right, yes.
Okay, and that was after Detective Thorpe testified, correct?
That's right, after he heard Detective Thorpe's testimony. Correct.
Okay, he said they threw out, and it was tough to hear, so I want to make sure we're clear. On that call, he said they threw out Yak, Doo-Wop, Nard, correct?
I don't recall that they threw out
And I'm not suggesting throughout the case. I'm saying throughout the names.
That sounds right. I definitely heard him mention those names.
Okay.
So I took it to mean maybe like their names were mentioned, maybe.
Right. And because it was hard to hear, I'm just trying to make it clear. He's not saying, and nowhere in that call did he say he was with those people or anything like that day.
No.
Okay. And again, those names were mentioned by Detective Thorpe, correct?
That's right.
All right, cool. And he was, well, you can't testify to his mind state, but in that call, he said F
on, Max,
word
you got
D, Woody, and the other D, correct?
I don't know. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, there we go. Come on,
Have
Mr.
you
Sprinkle.
ever had a dreams that you had
Whenever the defense gets up there and is cross-examined, he starts to and
D and the other D, correct?
I don't know. Yeah, that's. That's not a verbatim quote. It's pretty close. I mean, I think the spirit of his comment was captured in your quotation there.
Okay, and then he said, them, F, N-words, know what is going on.
Something along those lines, yeah.
And then that's the case that was, that's the tape that was played in court today, but there are 8 other calls on that CD, correct?
Correct.
All right. You also listened in on another call that Mr. Stillwell had with that same young lady on November 23rd, 2015, correct?
I think so. That sounds right.
At 16:08, at 4:08 p.m.
That sounds correct.
All right. At 5:07 into that call, Mr. Stillwell says, N-words will say whatever, correct?
That sounds correct. I know that was the general spirit. I don't know if that's an exact quotation as to what he said.
Okay. At 5:15 in that call, Mr. Stillwell said, they just trying to get the heat off their ass.
Again, that sounds like the general, that was something along the lines of what he said, that was the topic of conversation. I just can't say if that was a verbatim quote or not.
And again, Mr. Copeland at that time was facing federal and state charges.
That's right.
And Mr. Zachary, the other D, was facing charges related to the April 28th, 2015 shooting of houses, correct?
That's right.
All right. Mr. Stillwell in that November 23rd, 2015 call said, people will say anything to save their ass.
I'm not sure if this point is the best evidence. If Mr. Sharp would like to play the calls.
Best evidence.
Sustained.
Wow. Mr. Sprinkle being up there is the best evidence objection.
What
are we talking
It
about?
is an evidence. Trying to save some time, but
I appreciate that.
That's probably what Max wants to say right now. Like, Your Honor, this witness is the best evidence objection. Why is he here?
If there's a valid objection, I've got to sustain it.
okay. All right.
Objection 403 witness. Waste of time.
Thank you.
I twisted his arm. Also in that call, and this is just one more, and then we'll move on. Mr. Stillwell said, they will sit right there and lie.
I don't recall that exact utterance being made, but it wouldn't be inconsistent with the general tone and of the call and the other things that he was saying.
Okay, cool. All right. Regarding Mr. Copeland's cell records and the plotting you did, let me get this right. 722 is the 911 call.
Yes.
Okay. You said at 726 you have Mr. Copeland headset pinging on the tower. So 4 minutes later, he's pinging on the tower at the Green Store or in the vicinity of the Green Store.
That is correct. It had moved north to that tower, so it was actually south of that tower seconds prior to, but yes.
Well, you don't actually, cell phone records aren't like a
Exact location.
chart where you see, for instance, a cursor moving through a map, are they? You don't see real-time movements during a call, do you?
No.
You just get spots in certain points in time
Yes, that's correct.
when cell calls are initiated.
That is, well, you get the tower and the antenna utilized by the handset at the time of the call. It's a very big area.
But just at the time, right, vague area, but also just at the time of the initiation of the call.
Correct.
Okay. And so 4 minutes after the purported time of the 911 call, that headset is utilizing the tower near the Green Store.
That's right.
Okay. And we also, the truth is, we can speculate. We don't know how much time passed. We know the 911 call was made at 7:22, but we don't know how much time passed between the shooting and the 911 call, do we?
No, I can't say exactly.
Good point, Max.
From what I recall, it's pretty quickly, but I can't say the exact seconds.
Well, we don't, I mean, people, before they call 911, they can try to hide guns, right?
There's any number of things people can do before they call 911.
Right, they can try to get guns before they call 911.
He's going to object.
The possibilities are endless as to what somebody could do before
Right.
they call 911.
And some people will do certain things before they call the police to where they're at.
Objection. Speculation.
Sustained.
Well, the bottom line is we
You
don't
got a
know how much
couple in
time
there.
passed. So we're dealing with inexact times.
Yes.
Okay, great.
You know, someone could have gone and killed Big Nut. I thought Max was going to go there, but you could see Mr. Abadi fidgeting like he was about to get up.
And
He snuck that in there, though. I see what he's
you would
doing.
agree that the Green Store is within a minute drive of the barbershop?
It's pretty close. I don't know. I can't say if it's a minute, but it's less than a mile away.
Less than a mile away. Thank you. All right. Finally, I'm just going to ask you about one other matter. Javaris Bradford has come up, a.k.a. Tudor, right?
Yes.
Okay. He's the owner of, through your investigator, he's the owner of the Pontiac at the Texaco.
Yeah, from what I recall, he was the registered owner.
Right. And he came up in your investigation and the fact that Pontiac was on the video piqued your interest.
That's what I said, yep.
All right. At some point in November of 2018, he wasn't charged in 2015.
He wasn't.
Okay. In November of 2018, he was still in the community, correct? He wasn't in jail or anything.
That's right.
All right. And you determined that you wanted to speak to him.
I did.
All right. And did you reach out to him?
I don't think I reached out to him. It was likely a DA's office investigator. Somebody reached out to him.
Okay. And
It's
he
true,
was-
Miss Pineapple.
was he asked to come in? Was he compelled to come into the DA's office? How did that work?
Compelled is such
I
an
believe we
interesting
gave him a
term.
grand jury subpoena, if I remember correctly.
Okay, you issued a grand jury subpoena for him to come in and speak to you?
The grand jury was in session that day. Having never spoken to him, I wanted to speak with him before I potentially put him up before the grand jury, and I did end up speaking with him, and at that point I determined that not to put him up.
Okay, that was November 13th, 2018, correct?
That's correct.
And you had a meeting with him in a conference room in the DA's office, correct?
Right, it was on video. I have it right here, actually.
Yes. And
the video on
present
DVD.
were you,
Yes.
Investigator Thorpe, at some point came into the meeting, correct?
Investigator Thorpe, I think he was present the entire meeting.
Okay.
It's on video, but from what I remember, he was there the entire time.
Okay, and then I don't want to mess up the young lady's name, so I'm not even going to try, but there was an investigator with the DA's office. Could you say her name correctly?
Cynthia Nwakocha.
Wakocha.
Cynthia, first name, last name, Nwokocha, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And Javaris Bradford showed up, correct?
That's correct.
He did not have an attorney,
He did not.
and he showed up to the conference room without an attorney, correct?
Objections to relevance, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay.
Come on, Judge Whitaker.
For this meeting, you had video from the Texaco, or was it stills or video?
There were definitely stills. I think it may have, I can't recall if I played motion pictures of the surveillance video or I just had stills. He was at the very least showed still images.
And you told him, in fact, that you were investigating the homicide of Donovan Thomas.
I'm going to object for your state's point as to what Mr. Sprinkle told Mr. Bradford.
What? How's that an objection? He said it.
Sustained.
Wow.
To what? I'm not asking what Mr. Bradford told Mr. Sprinkle. I'm asking what Mr. Sprinkle told Mr. Bradford.
Oh, okay. Overruled.
Pay attention, Judge. God dang, Judge Whitaker.
Y'all can ask him, he's right here.
Okay. So you told him that there was evidence against him in this case.
I don't recall exactly what I said. I bet I likely said that to him. I would go so far as to say yes, I did. That would
Report. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yes, I'm sure I said that to him because there was.
Okay. And you wanted him to speak to you about who was at the Texaco, correct?
I did.
Okay.
Nothing.
And you told him that your supervisor wanted to charge him, but you were holding things off to give him a chance to talk.
You're saying
Yeah, I mean, it is.
all.
Sustained.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Was your supervisor Pat Dutcher at the time?
He was in.
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may.
Oh boy. Here we go again. Let's get forward. Let's see if he gets this question in here.
Your Honor, based on the court's ruling, I do not have any more questions, and I'll note with like 50 minutes to spare.
That is correct. All right. Is
That's
any
funny.
other defense attorney going to have questions for Mr. Sprinkle?
Briefly.
Okay. All right. I think we can
Sounds like
fit
Mr.
in
Weinstein.
another one or maybe two.
Yep, there he is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sprinkle, or ADA Sprinkle.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm
He
good.
looked
How
at-
are you
He
doing?
looked at
Very
the
well.
clock. Well, actually, it's 11:59, so it's still morning. Come on, Mr. Sprinkle. Either that or he's like, dang, it's noon already?
Good afternoon, Mr. Sprinkle,
Look at him
or
look at the
ADA
clock.
Sprinkle.
He said,
Good afternoon. How are you?
God
I'm good.
dang,
How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you.
what's going on?
Can I just look at this? You can see this demonstrative, right?
I can.
I'll leave this here. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. That's okay. I don't see Mr. Kendrick's phone on there.
Uh-oh.
That is correct.
So you didn't do any analysis for Mr. Kendrick's phone on January the 10th, 2015.
I was without records to analyze for Mr. Kendrick's phone.
Okay, so you have no records of his phone on that date, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there you go.
Anybody else?
I would like to ask questions, Joe.
All right.
Dang, we got everybody coming up there. And Brian Steele's probably going to ask the same questions that Doug Weinstein asked. Do you see any phone calls from my client? Nope.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. How you doing, sir?
Very well. Thank you.
I'll actually let you know if I'm okay. Can I ask you some questions?
Well, yes, please.
Thank you. So, I want to just go into a few different topics. When you,
Who's playing with the microphone?
the
man?
way this was set up in your office, and you specifically work in this case, I think you made it clear. I'm going to be very brief, but if I'm wrong, just say I got it wrong. Law enforcement officers with whomever, FBI, APD, GBI, whomever is working the case, eventually your office may get involved and summon, or they give to you their work product or their files on the case. Fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
And then what you're doing is, because you're law enforcement, but you're the arm of the attorneys who come to court, you have to look at everything and prepare it or not prepare it for any type of charges.
That's right.
All right. And when I say charge, I mean formal charge. I know, ladies and gentlemen, know police can issue warrants, but warrants aren't an official charging document. That would be an accusation or a bill of indictment.
Yes.
When you got, and I'm focused only on this case, obviously, okay? When you get the file, you're getting the files from everybody who touched the case, as far as you could tell, from crime labs, from law enforcement, APD, GBI, whomever. I'm not eliminating, I'm not trying to keep out other agencies, but you try to get all those files together.
Well, yeah, I try to get all the documents or whatever media that every agency that investigated the case has. I mean, I want to get as much as possible.
Sure. Now, when you get the APD files, Atlanta Police Department files, and you start looking at them and reviewing them, I want to ask you if you can remember. Do you remember any notation from Detective Thorpe that he reviewed the McDonald's surveillance video from January 10th, either January 10th, 2015, and he did that on or about January 11th or January 12th, 2015?
I don't, and I feel like I would remember that.
Tell the jurors why you remember that, if you don't mind.
Well, the McDonald's, as
It's a
they've
great
heard,
question.
was the McDonald's at Old Hayville and Cleveland Avenue.
151 Cleveland Avenue?
Yeah, I think that's the address. Whatever, it's at the intersection, at or near the intersection of Old. Yes, I believe that's the address. What you just said, and that was said to be a rendezvous point, the parking lot of which. So I would have remembered I would have remembered it because, first of all, I've never seen that video. I've never seen any surveillance video from McDonald's. So if I were to read something that said from a law enforcement officer said they did review
No
it,
surveillance
I would have
video?
said, well, I would have remembered, that would have been a big thing for me. I would want to have had the video. So no, I don't recall any notations from Detective Thorpe about him reviewing the video and not obtaining it, presumably. So no, I don't remember anything like that.
Yeah,
And if
Sharice
that-
caught that. I thought they said there was a video from the McDonald's. Maybe they said there was a video of the McDonald's, possibly from across the street, or maybe a witness. They said, hey, that's Young Thug. I don't know. We have to
Video,
wait
if
to
it's
find out.
working and if it captures the area that this, what was your word, rendezvous? Is that what you just said?
I think so.
Okay. And the rendezvous, according to Mr. Copeland, let's say, it might be others, but at approximately
Sprinkle's
8
talking too
o'clock
much.
at night, January 10th, 2015, approximately. And you could correct me, if my times are off. If that surveillance at the McDonald's captured people actually meeting, then we would know who was actually there and if Mr. Copeland was being
testifying.
straightforward. Is that fair to say?
I'm going to object to speculation.
Sustained.
Dang.
Did Detective Thorpe ever tell you, besides his file, did he tell you that he went out and looked at and saw or tried to see the video from
Maybe.
the 10th day of January 2015, approximately 8 o'clock p.m. from the McDonald's?
Objection, hearsay.
I covered this with Detective Thorpe, and I'm impeaching him.
Overruled.
I don't recall him telling me that. It doesn't mean that he didn't, but I just don't recall it. It just seems like something that would leave a mental impression on me because, again, I would have just
mental
thought, where's the video? I don't have the video. I would have liked to know that. So I don't think he ever did.
In
Mr.
your
Sprinkle's so good at
experience,
his
since
job,
I
I love
believe
it.
you said 2012, but it might have been 2009, with the DA's office in Fulton County, have you looked at and subpoenaed whether, or a grand jury, or excuse me, a court's search warrant, surveillance video from stores?
I have, yeah.
Have you found that after a certain period of time, some of the video is erased or deleted?
Yes, that's the practice. The videos are all digital. I don't want to say they're all digital. There may still be people using tapes, but every video I've ever seen has been digital, and they only have so much room on the computer system that's storing the video, and eventually will start overwriting itself.
Explain, first of all, this includes 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jurors what you mean. I know you're comfortable with it, but overriding itself. Just explain that process from your experience,
Again?
knowledge, and work with these.
Well, just like every computer, surveillance system, cameras are hooked up to essentially a computer. The footage is recorded digitally and stored on a drive, some sort of media in the computer, but that drive can only store so much data, so many ones and zeros, I suppose. And so once the drive is full, the system is programmed to just, it's not like a tape where it starts in the beginning of the tape and starts overwriting it, but it starts writing data to the parts of the drive that already have data on it. And over time, the data just starts to rewrite itself. And eventually, after a certain amount of time, all traces of the footage from a certain date will eventually be gone as they've been overwritten by data from other footage.
So just putting that make it simple, on a date. Have you seen a surveillance video that lasts 30 days?
I believe so. I don't want to throw out any names, but there's one place in particular that comes to mind, but it's not relevant here, and I also don't remember exactly, but I do believe that 30 days I have seen before.
Okay. What's a typical days until it starts overriding?
I'm going to object to asking answering speculation element.
Speculation?
I'm impeaching Detective Thorpe.
Yeah.
I feel maybe 2 weeks. That's always what I kind of
Okay.
mark in my mind as if it's within 2 weeks of an event. I mean, you want to get the video as soon as possible, to be clear. But I really start losing hope after 2 weeks. But again, it depends on this. It could be a big retail outfit. Now going back to 2015, it may be a little different, and maybe they just have petabytes of storage for their video and it's stored off site. But your typical, like a gas station, particularly in 2015, where it was stored within, probably on a DVR, you're going to want to get that as soon as possible. You can start overwriting after 48 hours.
Okay. And when you say then It writes it over. So if it's, I'm just using 2 weeks, okay? January 1, 2015, 2 weeks would go to approximately January 14, 2015.
Right.
On January 15, 2015, does the entirety, in your experience and your dealing with
Brian
this,
still
does the
so good at
entirety
asking
of
questions.
everything in those 2 weeks go away, or is it on a rolling basis?
Don't you object to asked and answered one
Not of this witness.
and speculation as to this witness?
He's asking within his experience, overruled.
Well, okay, so
Brian Steele
are we
is
talking
so
about
good at
one
asking questions.
location and one, if we're talking about surveillance footage, one location and one computer system, or we're talking about in the entire world of surveillance footage?
McDonald's, 2015, January 10th, surveillance, just typical McDonald's, your experience, hypothetically 2 weeks. I want to know on the 15th day, so I'm just after the 2 weeks, what you're explaining to the jury, does day 1, January 1 override, or the entirety from January 1 to 2014? That's my question.
Object to lack of foundation at this point?
Sustained.
In your experience with a 2-week camera, does it override just 1 day at a time? As the next day comes in, the first day's gone.
Vague as to your experience to a camera in a 2-week period. Any camera? I mean,
Sustained.
When you say
Come on, Brian, I
override,
just gave
tell the
you your
jurors what
props.
you meant by that.
asked and answered.
Sustained.
I don't believe he just
Yeah, he
used the
did.
word.
He explained it in detail.
All right. Did you or any of your members of your team, I'm including the prosecution team, you understand what I'm asking? Mm-hmm. So prosecution team are all law enforcement, GBI crime lab, your office, whomever, okay? FBI. Did you ever find out from any source that McDonald's, how long, if at all, they had that surveillance video?
The record retention period for surveillance video, if I knew it, I don't remember it now. So no, I can't answer. I don't know what their retention period was back then, nor do I know what it is now.
Did you ever hear from a detective, you know who Detective Gaither, Detective Dennis, they worked together, gang unit in 2015, January?
Yes, I know them.
Okay. Did they ever tell you or put in writing in any way that they went to the McDonald's in June
This is gonna
11,
be overruled.
2015
Cook, Brian.
and inquired about the surveillance?
Objection hearsay.
Nope.
I am
Overruled.
impeaching Detective Gaither's testimony.
And who are you asking about at this point?
Detective
Anyone.
Gaither, January 11th.
The question he asked was, did anyone, if I remember right, let's rewind it. I think he asked, did anyone put in the report?
2000
Hold on.
surveillance.
I want to hear the
In
question
writing,
again.
50 from
This is an
a
excellent
detective, you know who
question.
Detective Gaither, Detective Dennis, they worked together, gang unit in 2015, January?
Yes, I know
Okay,
them.
he did say Gaither.
Did they ever tell you or put in writing in any way that they went to the McDonald's
He did say they. I
in
was
June
right.
11, 2015 and inquired about the surveillance?
Objection hearsay.
I am impeaching Detective Gaither's testimony.
And who are you asking about at this point?
Detective Gaither, January 11, 2015, going to
said they.
McDonald's and inquiring about the video.
And that is hearsay, and it's not impeachment unless they specifically confronted
Sustained.
Detective
I
Gaither
did confront Detective
Gaither?
Gaither.
with
Yes.
telling
He
Mr.
asked
Sprinkle
about the report.
as to whether they got video surveillance footage or not.
I wanna know if
Was
it's
not
I want to know if it's in his
Detective Gaither
records.
was not confronted with that.
Okay, sustained.
I want to know
Ah,
if it's in
come
the
on.
records.
He can ask him if it's
That
in the
would
records.
be, then that would, what,
Come on, Judge
rephrase your
Whitaker.
question. That question, the objection is sustained.
Do you have any information from any source that you looked at in your records, conversations that Detective Gaither and or Detective Dennis went to the McDonald's on the day after interviewing Kenneth Copeland, June 11, 2015, and inquired about
There
their
you go.
surveillance equipment?
No, I have no notes that indicate that, and I have no memory of any conversations that I had with them where they told me that they did.
Did you ever obtain personally
Great
or
question.
have a member of your team, or it was done before you got involved, Sky House, you know, the condominium that Mr. Williams was living at in January 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Any surveillance from there?
No.
How about the Green Store?
He's good.
Any surveillance at the Green Store that Kenneth Copeland states that he was there, personally there, at and around the time of the killing of Donovan Thomas? Any surveillance from there?
No, no surveillance.
Did you or members of the prosecution team, I'm including all law enforcement, ever interview the people or persons that Kenneth Copeland said in June 10, 2015 that he was with at the Green Store at the time around Mr. Donovan Thomas's murder?
Well, there's a little Rick that he mentioned, if I remember correctly. No, I didn't, nor do I know if law enforcement did. No.
How many cell phones did Kenneth Copeland have access to that he can use on January 10, 2015?
All I know of is the one that I testified to.
Now
And
there's
you
two.
do know that Kenneth Copeland testified in this court, and if you don't know, just say I don't know, that he had multiple cell phones.
I'm going to object at the rule of sequestration.
I mean, I would hope he doesn't know.
Okay.
Since he's a
Do you
witness in this case.
have knowledge that Mr. Copeland did not have 2 or more cell phones on January 10, 2015 through your investigation?
Sustained.
Aston answered. He just answered that question, that he only knew of the one cell phone.
Sustained.
Come on, Brian, you got it.
Let me ask you this. Phone records that you talked about at length with the Honorable Mr. Body, through your analysis, and what you were given and subpoenaed more phone records, fair to say?
Yes.
All right. Those phone records,
Quick question for our attorneys in the building. I'm just thinking ahead here. Could he ask him about the phone records and then ask him about the numbers that weren't necessarily connected to anyone? Because Mr. Sprinkle said that there were several numbers and several calls back and forth, but not all of them were tracked and not all of them he knew who they belonged to. Could he ask him if it's possible if any one of those other numbers belong to Mr. Copeland? I'm trying to ask him. Y'all let me know.
give a general whereabout of where a handset is located, if it's working properly, if the records are accurate, I'm assuming all that, where a phone set would be in relation to a cell phone tower. Is that fair to say?
Right, just the area that the approximate area that the phone would be located based on the tower that it utilized.
And in your experience, if you know, and if you don't know, just say, I don't want to testify to this, that area could be how many miles, how many feet, do you know? And we're talking about Atlanta, January 2015. And please, I'm not trying to put you out on a limb. I know you're under oath.
Well, I don't know that anybody could testify as to the exact square footage of the area, but it suffices to say it's not like GPS. It's a large area, probably, like over a mile.
Could be multiple miles.
Could be.
And jurors may not understand what you meant by it's not like GPS. Just explain that.
Well, like a point on a map. Like, in other words, when you get phone records, you don't have a log of the exact locations of a cellular device, like a pinpoint that you could put on the map that the phone was right here. Like, for example, I have a phone on me. If you were to get my phone records, it wouldn't show my phone sitting right here in the witness stand. It would show that it was using the tower next to the courthouse or near the courthouse, down the street, wherever, but it's not exactly.
Now, are you aware from your review of your records as you've been testifying and the recordings that Kenneth Copeland met with Detective Thorpe, Homicide Detective Thorpe, on the early morning hours of January 11, 2015?
Yes, I do recall Kenneth Copeland traveled to the precinct or arrived at the precinct and spoke with Detective Thorpe, yes.
And did you remember seeing that video? Did you ever watch that, and do you have a memory of that video encounter?
I believe so. It's been a while. I don't recall that video being all that important to me. I remember summarizing it, so I must.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Kel. That's why I asked that question about Woody having multiple phone numbers, because the Honorable Attorney Kel Bell says, I don't see why he couldn't first establish that he doesn't know Copeland's other numbers. Then he could talk about all of the records to confirm Sprinkle can't say whether they included Copeland's number. That's exactly what I was thinking, Kel Bell. That's why I asked that. Couldn't he ask, even if it's possible that one of those other phone numbers on his record belonged to Kenneth Copeland? I mean, then it's like, well, that's some reasonable doubt to me. But I like that. Yeah, that's way better.
Precinct, or arrived at the precinct and spoke with Detective Thorpe, yes.
And did you remember seeing that video? Did you ever watch that, and do you have a memory of that video encounter?
I believe so. It's been a while. I don't recall that video being all that important to me. I remember summarizing it, so I must have watched it, yes.
Do you remember Kenneth Copeland had a cell phone on the desk when he was speaking with Detective Thorpe?
That I don't remember. I'd have to take a look at the video.
Well, the jurors have seen it, so we're good. Do you remember Kenneth Copeland explaining that he knew that cell phones can give an area? On January 11, 2015, explaining to Detective Thorpe that he was aware that check the cell phone records, check the cell phone, it'll show it's in this area. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember somebody saying that during the, I can't say that I remember if it was him, though.
All right. Let me ask you this. The cell phone records that we have here, unfortunately, don't give the actual communication. They might say handset of Kenneth Copeland, speaks with a handset of Natasha Williams, but we don't know what's being said according to these records.
We
Fair
don't
to
know
say?
who is
That's
making
correct.
the communication. That's even more important.
Now-
it could have been Lil Woody's daughter or his baby mama,
Fair to say?
That's correct.
or the mother of his daughter, I should say.
Now,
Respectful.
with regards to Nyesha Williams, Nyisha Williams, typical
Yes.
spelling. Do you know that person?
I do not.
Okay. Do you remember seeking and obtaining and subpoenaing cellular telephone records for Nyesha Williams?
I do remember doing that.
And do you remember why you did that?
They appeared in the, there was a number that appeared in Kenneth Copeland's cell phone records that evening. And when I say that evening, I mean the evening of January 10th, 2015. And specifically, so I'm clear here, it was 404-621-0102. I'm looking at Kenneth Copeland's records to refresh my recollection. And because of the times that there were phone calls sent or transmitted and received by that number, I thought it was relevant. So I subpoenaed both the call logs and the subscriber information. The subscriber information was the name of Nyesha Williams.
And sometimes people can, and there's nothing wrong with it, people can use a cell phone that's not registered in their name for various reasons. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say it happens all the time.
So a Nyesha Williams, I'm just using that name since we're using it, she could be on the Verizon call as a registered person, but she can freely give me her cell phone and I could use it all the time.
That's right.
But it would come back
There you
if
go.
somebody, like you subpoenaed it, it would look like it's Nyesha Williams' call.
There
In
it
the
is.
name doesn't mean she's using the phone.
That's right.
And you, through your research, took Kenneth Copeland's statements on June 10th, 2015, and when he said he called Mr. Garlington, you wanted to know what number Mr. Garlington was using then. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
And through your deduction, whether it's right or wrong, you said the Nyesha Williams registered phone might have been in the custody, control, and use of Demeke and Garlington.
It's possible, but I do not know.
I'm not saying anyone knows, but that was your deduction.
That's right.
That's why you then targeted the jail records for Nyesha Williams' registered phone, because you thought it may relate to Mr. Garlington.
Do you mean the cell phone records for her phone?
Did I say that?
I think you said jail records, but yes, I obtained the cell phone records for
I
her
said
phone.
jail record. I meant cell phone record.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you obtained those records, you specifically did not request, you testified to this before, you specifically did not request historical cell site location data for Nyesha Williams' phone.
That's correct.
And what that means to the jurors who may know what it is, but if don't, that means you don't get the longitude and latitude of which tower that phone is employing at the time of the handset speaking with the cell tower, then it goes to the switching station.
That's essentially right. You just get a log of incoming and outgoing calls, the times, the numbers, but the columns that tell you the location of the tower that was utilized, you don't get that. You need a search warrant for that.
Did you ever exclude the Nyesha Williams cell phone as the phone Mr. Garlington was using on the night of January 10, 2015.
Did I ever conclude that it was not his phone? Or the phone that he was using, rather?
I meant the phone is using.
No, I never definitively concluded that he was or was not using that phone.
And if, as you believed or hunched or were doing your work, Mr. Garlington was using that phone registered to Nyesha Williams, then you can track at least what calls were being made at what times. Is that fair to say?
Use the microphone, the body.
All right, go ahead. You can answer.
You mean I can at least see the phone,
Yes.
like the list of calls that were sent and received, text messages sent and received by the phone, the handset?
Yes.
Yes, I believe I obtained those records.
All right. Now, Mr. Copeland stated on June 10, 2015, from the McDonald's, that he was in his car at some point, along with Mr. Garlington and along with Mr. McMullen, Demise McMullins, also known as Nard.
If I remember correctly, I think you said it was his brother Rontrez Brock's Dodge Charger, but yes, all three of them were at the McDonald's in that car, a car that he had possession of. Kenneth Copeland did, that is.
Okay. And Kenneth Copeland said that I'm not saying it's true, but Kenneth Copeland said on June 10, 2015, he left the McDonald's. I'm using 8 o'clock. If I'm wrong, just correct my time, but approximately 8 o'clock. He was driving the vehicle, the Charger, along with Mr. Garlington in the front passenger seat and Mr. McMullen or Nard in the rear driver's seat.
That sounds right, yeah. I don't recall what the exact seating arrangement was, but the occupants of the vehicle, that sounds correct.
And then he has that car, the Charger, going up following another vehicle, a Nitro, white Nitro, to around Jeffrey Williams' Sky House condo.
That's what he said.
And did you look, when analyzing the calls from Nyesha Williams, records rather, from Nyesha Williams, and realize that during that relevant period of time on the supposed drive from the McDonald's to the Sky House, the Nyesha Williams call that's potentially with Mr. Garlington and the Mr. McMullen calls, the number associated with Mr. McMullen, were in communication with each other?
Are you asking me, did Mr. McMullen and or the phone subscribed to by somebody named Nyesha Williams communicate?
At the relevant time of when supposedly Mr. Copeland is driving them together in the same car to the Sky House? Yes, that's my question.
I don't recall. I do recall Mr. McMullen was a very frequently contacted number within the Nyesha Williams phone records. I don't but I don't have, well, I do have Mr. McMullen. Let me see.
If you could check it, I'd appreciate it. And just tell the jurors whether at the time they're supposedly in the same exact car, these two phone numbers of the Nyesha Williams and the Mr. McMullen are communicating together according to phone records.
Okay, so we have, what?
For the record, Mr. McMullen's exhibit, what exhibit number it is?
Can you use what exhibit you're using?
Is that an exhibit, or
It's already in evidence.
does he know what exhibit number it is?
Do you have an exhibit number? Are you looking at an actual?
I think
I-
he may, well, y'all can clarify it, but is there an exhibit number on what you're looking at?
No, I just brought
No,
the phone, I printed them out and brought them to court.
This
so
is, what is it that you're looking at?
the phone records for 470-217-6080, Demise McMullen.
Okay, does anybody know what exhibit number that is?
Yes, 464Y.
Thank you.
Mr. Steele requested it during my direct.
Okay.
I didn't want it during his cross as well.
Okay, so what I see here is at 7:59 p.m. on January 10th, 2015.
Just do me a favor, because you're looking down. Can you just go a little slower?
Yes, yes. What I see.
Actually, let me stop. How much longer is your examination of this witness going to be?
45 minutes?
All right, let's stop and break for lunch.